Hi there. Welcome to another beginner's yoga class with me, Claire Thomas, your teacher for today. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to join me. I know time is your most precious commodity, so I'm glad that we can be doing this together. So, if you were able to check out our first beginner's class on the Joyful Rebels YouTube, you know that we went over a few poses that you might see in a yoga class. If you're brand new to yoga, this is a great introduction and way to build your foundation. And if you've taken yoga before, always a good idea to revisit the basics. Because sometimes when things are familiar, we kind of check out. And today we want to talk about checking in and being focused in the present moment, a topic that we refer to as mindfulness. So for today's class, you want to be wearing, something comfortable. You can always do this in pajamas or something stretchy. Whatever you feel comfortable moving around in is okay. I've also got my yoga blocks. So when we talk about props, these are things that you can use to support you in your class. I've got a cushion here or a pillow, and I'll bring up certain times where these might be helpful. So you can do this class with no props and just your body. Maybe you've got a yoga mat. Maybe you're at least on some type of cushioning like a towel or a rug, just to give yourself a layer above a heart, between you and a hard floor. But anyways, we're going to get started today in an easy seated pose, just like I am here. So I am on my bum, and sometimes you actually might want to shift and move some skin away so that your sits bones really feel connected to the earth. I've got my ankles gently crossed in front of me because this is comfortable for me. And you're going to find a shape that's comfortable for you because the purpose of this first pose that we take is to ground ourselves and to take our attention that might be flowing around everywhere and bring it to the present moment. Now, if your hips feel really tight and it's uncomfortable to be seated on the ground, you might bring in a cushion or a pillow and sit up on it. Elevating your hips here gives you a little bit more space here, a little less compression in your hips. So that's an option you can take as well. And if you remember last week, we started off in child's pose. That's a great shape to take in the beginning of any class or at any time in class, if you remember. So freedom to take whatever shape that you'd like right now. Child's pose, you can join me in this easy seated pose. If you're in this seated pose, we want to think about sitting up tall, lengthening in between our vertebrae, crown of your head reaching up to the sky. And then you want to think about softening. So bringing your shoulders away from your ears, relaxing your fingers and your jaw. It's about finding this balance of lengthening and softening. My hands are just going to rest on my knees here, and you can gently close your eyes. Start to notice your natural breath today. So what do I mean by that? Don't try to change your breath, the rhythm, or the depth. Just notice how you're breathing right now. So mindfulness, it is the act of being focused or aware of what's happening in the present moment. It's being present right here and now. And one tool we can use to practice mindfulness is to focus on our breath. Pay attention to your next breath in. Notice your breath out. Again, you reset your focus, notice the next breath. And here is a piece of valuable information. If your mind starts to wander or is very busy, we sometimes call it a monkey brain, that is completely normal. You are not doing anything wrong. That is normal. What you're going to do is you're going to notice it. Whoa, I'm thinking about something else. I jumped on a thought train. Awareness. Great job. Now you're going to take your attention and bring it back to your breath. And whether this happens one time, 2 times in a class, or 348 times in a class, that's okay. It's a practice. So the goal again is to notice if your thoughts are on something other than your breath or other than this moment, and then to bring the attention back. A few more breaths here. Practicing this shift to mindfulness. And you might say, why would I even want to practice mindfulness? Well, I'll spare you all the details, but there is a ton of great peer-reviewed research out there about the benefits of mindfulness, physical, emotional, mental. But I'll tell you this much, it's a great tool for reducing stress and anxiety. It can help to lengthen your attention span. It can increase immune system functioning. The list goes on and on. I'll include some resources in the show notes, in the episode details. But overall, multiple benefits. All right, great job starting to ground ourselves into this moment. Now you can gently open your eyes. If you had your hips elevated, you can remove the cushion, the block, whatever you were sitting on. We'll reorient ourselves to the space on the mat. So again, remember, sit up tall, but relax your shoulders down. And we're going to take a few side bends. So again, if you remember last week, we went from child's pose into cat-cows, and the focus was a warm-up, right? To start getting some movement in our spine, to move some of that fluid around our joints. So we're going to do some side bends here. So again, I've got my ankles gently crossed. If you want, you can actually switch your legs to having your other ankle crossing on top. And on an inhale, you're going to sweep your arms up to the sky, reaching your fingers up while still maintaining that distance between your shoulders and your ears. And on your next exhale, you're going to place your right hand to your side and reach your left arm up and over your head. And this first time through, we're going to pause for a few breaths in each shape. So you're going to reduce the urge if you're noticing your chest is starting to face the ground. You're actually going to lift and have a slight rotation so your chest is instead shining more towards the sky. So we've got side bending and a bit of a rotation. See if you can relax your jaw. We'll hold this for 2 more breaths. Great job. On your next inhale, bring it back up to center. Our inhales are to center. We lengthen and reset. And then exhale, we'll bend to the other side. So remember, we don't want to be sinking our chest towards the floor. We're not reaching in front. We're reaching towards the left side of the room. And you might feel your hip, your opposite hip, start to lift up. So you're really going to want to ground down through that opposite hip. So you've got energy from your hip going down to the floor and from your fingers reaching up and over your head. And that should feel great lengthening through your side body. Remember to relax your face. Your neck can be neutral or maybe even slightly up at the ceiling. 2 more breaths here. And then next inhale, we're going to come up. And we're going to start to move right to left. We're going to connect our movement and our breath. So take another breath in. Exhale, bend to one direction. Inhale takes you back up, core engaged. Exhale over. All your inhales are going to take you back to center for that reset and lengthening. Your exhales, you bend. Not going fast here. Mindfully riding your inhales and your exhales. Maybe you already notice you're getting a little bit deeper in each bend. Remember to press that opposite hip down. Let's do one more each side. Doesn't matter what side you started with. Inhale up. Exhale, we'll bring our hands to heart center. Call this our Anjali Mudra. Remember pressing your fingers together, press your thumbs together. Maybe you press your thumbs into your chest. Take just a moment here. Bring your attention back to your breath. Now we're going to come into tabletop and do some cat-cows. So however you want to get there, we're going to end up on hands and knees. And then you can remember some of the alignment cues that we talked about last week. So we want to do some joint stacking here. So you've got shoulder over elbow over wrist, which I apologize, you can't really see, but they're there. Don't want to lock out your elbows, so keep soft elbows there. I've got my hips over my knees. I'm pulling my belly in. And if you remember, I like to keep my toes tucked here, but always freedom to untuck. So you can see which works best for you. And then we'll move through some cat-cows or cow-cats, because as we inhale, we're going to come into cow pose. So you drop your belly, squeezing your shoulder blades down and back, tailbone lifting up. And then as you exhale, you're rounding your back. Let your head hang. Press into your fingers. And then you start to move through those two shapes. You inhale to cow, exhale to cat. You're doing a great job. Move through a few more rounds of that. Again, an excellent way to warm up and stretch and move your spine. And then we'll come back to tabletop, and we're going to add in another movement here that we can do from tabletop. So in beginner video 1, we talked about a calf and a foot stretch you can do with an extended leg, and of course, freedom to do that. We're going to do something called threading the needle. So as you move forward with your yoga practice, there are basic poses and shapes that we take, and then there's ways that we can add on to them to target different types of our body that we want to stretch or strengthen, things that just feel fun to do, because sometimes our practice can be about moving and having fun. So we're going to do something called threading the needle. So we're in our tabletop. Remember, we've got our flat back, our joints are stacked. And on an inhale, you're going to take your right hand and you're going to twist open and reach your fingers up towards the sky. So you're still balancing on your left hand, fingers spread wide, and your knees and toes. So we've got a rotation here, a spinal rotation, especially in the upper back. Gaze can maybe go up at your fingers, or you can keep more of a neutral neck. And then on an exhale, you're going to take that right hand. The back of your hand's going to skim the earth as you send it underneath you. You see my head and shoulder come down to my mat. So again, we were up here, opening up on an inhale and an exhale. We're running that hand underneath, landing on your right side of your head, maybe your right shoulder. Notice my bum is still lifted off my heels here. And it's okay if your shoulder or your head doesn't reach the ground. And maybe you even bring a block in here. Remember, a block is great to help get our mat closer to us. We're really going to be feeling rotation in the other direction. You might have a lot of feelings in your rear deltoids here, the back of your shoulder. Try to relax your jaw. And then we'll come back to tabletop and we'll do that on the other side. So again, we talked about cat-cows being so great for warming up your spine. Twisting is great for spinal health as well. So this is an option to add twists into your practice. So from a neutral spine, this time we're going to take our left hand, open up to the sky. This first time through, we're pausing. We will connect one movement, one breath after this. But this inhale took our hand up. And again, release tension in your neck and your jaw. And then exhale. This hand's going to come underneath your body. As you land, again, maybe it's your left shoulder, the side of your left head, maybe it's a block. You're pressing the top of your left hand into the earth. Do that and notice the sensation you get in your shoulder. We'll come back to tabletop. And like I said, let's connect movement and breath here. So as a quick reminder, inhales are when we're going to reach our hands up to the sky. Exhales, we're going to send our arm underneath. So follow for my cues here if you're new to this connecting movement and breath. Or you can just do what feels right in your body, and that's great too. So we're here in this neutral spine, tabletop. Inhale, right arm reaches up to the sky. Exhale, send it underneath you. Stay for an in-breath. Exhale, reset to tabletop. Other arm. Next inhale, sweep it up. Exhale, goes underneath you. Stay for an inhale. Exhale, tabletop. Let's do it again. One more time each side. Inhale, twist. Exhale, thread the needle. Stay for an inhale. Exhale, tabletop. Other side. Big inhales, you twist open. Exhale, thread the needle. Stay for an inhale. And then back to tabletop. Great job. While you're in tabletop, freedom to take a few cat-cows. You can also feel free to find any other movement that your body wants to try out here. So I'm doing really small rotations here, circles to the right and left. Really mindful again that I'm not shooting my wrists out or my shoulders over my wrists. Just moving around, checking out how your body feels today. And we're going to come back into an easy seated pose for a moment. So we talked about paying attention to your breath as a great way to practice mindfulness because you're paying attention to the breath in this moment. Another way to practice mindfulness is to notice how your body feels in a pose. So if you're paying attention to the sensations that you're experiencing in the moment, you're also practicing mindfulness. So that's another tool. If counting your breath or noticing your breath is, you're resistant to it in that moment for whatever reason, to say, okay, well, where am I feeling this pose? So we're going to move into a pose that we're going to hold for several breaths here. So what we're going to do is I'm going to make a wide V shape with my legs. See, you can't really see. That's okay. So we call this a straddle. So I'm making this wide V shape with my legs. My toes are pointed up to the sky. And we're going to take a fold, or we're going to hinge at our hips here. So a couple of things before we do that. One, if you're feeling really tight in your hips and it's uncomfortable to even sit like this, you can always grab your block or a cushion or pillow and put it under your bum and elevate your hips. So anytime that we're hinging, forward folding, you can always elevate your hips. Secondly, we want to make sure that we keep a bend in our knees as we start to hinge forward here, because we don't really want to ever lock out our joints. The third thing is that this shape doesn't have to look a certain way. So we are going to hinge forward. If you remember, we did a seated forward fold last week with our legs together, and this time our legs are apart. It doesn't matter how far your chest gets to the floor. In fact, you might want to grab some of your props to again provide some support so you're not just hanging here. So you can, once you reach a level where you're feeling a stretch, you're feeling it in your low back, you're feeling sensation in your hamstrings, you might then want to add some props to support you and make the shape more sustainable. So that was a lot of talking. Thank you for bearing with me. So now we're seated. We've got our legs in this straddle. We're going to inhale, reach our arms up. And then exhale, you're going to hinge forward here. And it doesn't matter, again, how far your chest gets towards the floor. You want to just notice sensation in your lower back, in your hamstrings, back of your legs. So I'm going to move a little bit more to the side here. But once you find a place that feels meaningful, you're just going to hang out. So maybe you're right here. Great. Maybe you can walk your hands a little bit further forward. You say, okay, Claire, I'm feeling sensation here. Excellent. And remember, we can use things. Maybe you can get to a point where your forehead can rest on a block. And that feels meaningful to you, because it doesn't matter what I'm doing right now. It's what feels meaningful to you. So let's find the shape that works. And you might notice your toes starting to internally rotate towards the front of your mat. So you might want to draw your toes back towards the ceiling here, bend in your knees. And then we're going to find some stillness here. So I'll remind you of two options you have. You can pay attention to your breath, or maybe you pay attention to the feelings that you're experiencing, the sensations you're noticing in your body. We're going to stay here for 10 breaths. If your mind starts to wander, that's a-okay. Hey, you noticed it. That's amazing. Now, turn your focus back to the present moment. Just a few more breaths here. Maybe you notice you've lengthened your muscles a little bit. Maybe you can hinge a little deeper. So freedom to explore that. And if you try and you're like, oh, nope, that doesn't feel good, then you back out, right? You get to decide. Discomfort is okay, pain is not, and only you know what you're experiencing. I'm going to gently use your hands to press your torso back up. We're going to carefully bring our legs together so you can use your hands to walk your legs together here. We don't need to muscle through everything. We can be gentle and supportive of ourselves. We're going to come onto our backs. So I like to hold on to the back of my knees here and gently roll down. And we're going to come into a pose called Happy Baby. So what we're going to do is you're going to bend your knees and you're going to start to bring your knees back towards your armpits here. And you want to grab for the outsides of your feet. And if you're telling me, oh no, Claire, that's too much, you can just hold on to your calves here. You can also just take this one leg at a time. So we're reaching for the outside of our foot. Now I see a lot of the times people wanting so badly to pull their knees into their armpits that their butt lifts up like this. But what we're going to do is first and foremost, we're going to focus on our spine, really from the base of our skull all the way through our spine to our tailbone, staying connected to the mat. I know my head is lifted because I'm talking to you, but you want the back of your head on your mat here. So first we're going to find this grip on our feet. And look, my bum is down. And if that's all I can do and I can't pull my knees any closer to me, that's cool. This is A-okay how it is. And remember, you have that option to take it one leg at a time, and I'll let you know when to switch. But we've got our whole spine connected to the mat. We've got our hands on the outside of our feet. And then there's that gentle pressure to bring our knees closer to our mat. Again, where are you noticing sensation? Inner thigh, hamstring. And if you want to bring some playfulness in, you can also bring in a little bit of a sway right and left. Sometimes that feels freeing and fun to bring in a little bit of movement. And if you've ever had babies or been around babies, you'll see they do. I mean, it's an aptly named pose. Kids, little babies, a few months old, they'll grab for their feet like it's nothing. Oh, to have the hip flexibility of a little one, but that's okay. We do the best with what we've got, and that's enough. So we'll release our feet now. If you were taking it on one side, spend a few breaths taking it on the other side. For some balance, which I should have reminded you. And if not, we'll hug our knees in and we'll just roll around for a second to wait for them to catch up. I like to call this little ball pose because it's like a spinal massage. You can move, even if it's just a little micro movement, and say, okay, where does it feel good? Using the mat to massage your back here. And we'll take one more shape today, and it's called Waterfall. So it's just sending your feet up to the sky. Now, if you have a block, you can lift your bum, and you want to place your block underneath basically the widest part of your bum. So it's not on your low back where your bum is actually hanging off towards the mat. That's probably not going to feel good. You want it supporting, again, the widest part of you. This should not feel discomfort at all. It's just helping to elevate your hips here, and then I've got my feet to the sky. And this is a pose you might see at the end of a class that allows your blood flow to rush back up through your core and rejuvenate heart and lungs. And if you don't have a block, again, if your legs are up in the air, you can even make a triangle with your hand and place it underneath your sacrum here. We're just looking for a little bit of hip elevation. And then we'll bring your knees, hug your knees into your chest one more time here. And we'll land when you're ready in Savasana. Again, it's this corpse pose where we're laying and we're resting. Your legs can be as wide as your mat. Your hands are palm up. thumbs out to the corners of the room. And here we rest. Slowly, you'll start to move your fingers and your toes. Gentle movement that can wake your body back up. Maybe it's your arms reaching over your head. A big full body stretch. And you'll carefully and gently roll onto your right or left side. One hand can be on your heart. Say thank you to yourself for showing up today. And then with both hands on the ground, you'll press your mat away from you and come back to this easy seated pose that we saw at the beginning of class. You can keep your eyes closed if you like. Maybe you bring your hands to heart center. When we think of mindfulness, I mentioned using your breath. You might see in meditation or noticing sensations. But mindfulness can show up if we're just paying attention. It's just noticing what we're doing, and that can be washing the dishes or brushing your teeth or eating. It can pop up in so many different parts of your day. So if you're paying attention to the here and now, that's practicing mindfulness. And if you notice your mind is wandering and you decide to refocus your attention, that's practicing mindfulness, and you're doing a great job. Let's take one big breath together, in through the nose and out through the mouth. Breathe in. Let it out. Thank you so much for joining me for the second beginner's class. Hope you had fun. Be well, yogis.